At this time, I would like Suzanne Koepplinger to come up, please. Where is Suzanne? Oh, there she is, to come up and speak about Native American issues and this issue that relates to today. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It is my great honor to be here at the request of our revered elder, Richard Wright, who could not join us today, but I bring you his message, and I'm very honored to do so. There are a lot of important issues facing this legislature, and we acknowledge that they have some difficult choices to make regarding this huge budget deficit that they're looking at. And there are a lot of different constituencies that are clamoring for attention and asking for fairness. What we've seen is that the state has fallen into a cycle of paying more and more money for the problems that are created by chemical dependency rather than actually treating the disease and being proactive in preventing some of these problems. We see increased costs to public safety, to the criminal justice system, to emergency rooms. You all know these things, but we're just not using our dollars wisely, and I think it's time that we take a look at the proactive preventive benefits of actually providing the services that are needed by people in our state. The American Indian community wants to be part of the solution that helps to maximize the number of people who are in treatment at a most efficient and effective cost. We want to help legislators understand that cuts to CD funding actually raise costs to the state and local governments and to the taxpayers. We also want to provide accurate and documented information and dispel any misconceptions. The first point, addiction is an illness for all races. This is an argument that has been made for decades, but I think the debate is over. We all know that alcohol and chemical dependencies are no longer discretionary treatment options by insurance companies. The argument this tired old argument that somehow if alcoholics would just stop drinking and pull themselves up by their bootstraps, we could all get on with our lives. I think we've rehashed it enough, and we know that it's a groundless, baseless argument. Research has demonstrated that this is also an illness that is treatable with very high success rates. On a more anecdotal note, all illnesses might be considered to be self-inflicted if we continually to engulf our bodies with environmental carcinogenic toxins that cause pathological illnesses, including cancer and diabetes. So we can pay now, or we can pay later. The cost of not treating addiction is more expensive than the cost of treating addiction. One national study demonstrated that $100,000 spent on treatment avoided $487,000 in health care costs alone and $700,000 in criminal justice system interventions. $100,000 versus $1,187. The United States Department of Human Services has written, even beyond the enormous physical and psychological costs, treatment can save money by diminishing the huge financial consequences imposed upon employers and taxpayers. Minnesota has tens of thousands of individuals, and many of you are here in this room, who are a living testimony to the successful intervention that has helped people get their lives back on track. Yes. We also note that Minnesota is not doing so well in terms of our statistics. We are among the top 5 states for binge drinking. A state study shows that Minnesota beats the national average for marijuana use. Nationally, 503 persons out of every 100,000 people are in treatment, but here in Minnesota, it is 389. Addiction touches many American Indian families, businesses, and reservation communities, including the urban membership of all Indian people who come through our state from any tribe or any community in our country. The American Indian community is present in all of our communities, and we stand ready with information and ideas to help achieve the best solution possible. So here's what we would like to recommend. The Consolidated Chemical Dependency Treatment Fund, otherwise known as the Consolidated Fund, is how the state of Minnesota distributes state and federal funds to counties who then in turn distribute to CD facilities. CD monies are channeled through, as many of you know, the Minnesota Department of Human Services. In 2009, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the agency that dispenses the federal funds, asked the state to reform its rate structure as it had become apparent that there were variances in how counties were receiving their rates. The Minnesota legislature then in turn asked DHS to work with providers and proposed rate reform in the 2011 legislature. Many CD providers, including many reservation communities, were included in these discussions, but we have been largely shut out of reviewing or commenting on the final rates that will be presented. As these recommendations are going forward, the American Indian community asks that we can be a partner to ensure that accurate rates are being recommended that will actually work for those who are being treated, for treatment professionals, and for the state's taxpayers. This is especially important when we realize the impact of alcoholism and drug abuse and how it's affected American Indian people and our relationship with the U.S. government. I can see him out of my peripheral vision telling me to get on with it, Suzanne. Finally, excise tax on alcohol. When did tax become a bad word? We need to start taxing alcohol so we can fund treatment programs. And I could go on and on about that, but I think we have to do it. Let's show the political will. Let's thank our legislators who are all committed to making Minnesota a great place to lead a good life. And thank you all very much for your activism.